about it.
You're watching QTV this morning. We are back again on another edition after the weekend break. It's Monday, the 30th of May, 2022 in our studios here along Kairaba Avenue. And on today's program, I'll be hosting and co-hosting myself. But nevertheless, I have Mr. Ade with me, so I am very safe. Mr. Ade, good morning.
Good morning, sir. And I guess you are both the host and amazing co-host, which is quite a rare thing to be, two in one.
Exactly. So I don't know where my Jay Sonko is at the moment, my Aliou Cisse, and of course the Eso Nyasi.
Jay Sonko is traveling back from Bali, Indonesia. She's I think she landed already, but maybe she's jet lagged.
Okay, yes. All right, that's great. It's going to be, as usual, we'll be doing the African proverb, then the newspaper review with our own Mr. Didrame, and of course, on Community Watch, we'll be looking at, we were supposed to have the NDMA, but we'll be bringing them on another segment, maybe in our programs coming. And on social issues, we'll be discussing something that have to do with the government's Commission on Economic Task Force. Will be discussed, and we'll be having an economist here, Mr. Malik Jallo, and we'll be having a very interesting discussions. As you know, people are talking about price control. But what controls the price? Where does the price escalate? What are the reasons why prices escalate? So we'll be discussing, and Malik Jallo will be here to help us clarify on price control. What are the things involved and how to go about it? And Mr. Ade will start with our African proverb, and it reads, when a tree falls down, the branches are the first part that will be dealt with.
Yes, it's an interesting one, and in the sense that it could be read so many ways. You could take it literally, that when a tree falls down, we've seen it in real life, that the first thing that people will cut off would be the ones that are sticking out before they get to the trunk. So, but if you use it in a kind of metaphorical sense, it's like when something collapses, it's like the bits that are sticking out are the ones that get dealt with first, rather than the main problem. So it's an interesting one, as I said. Literally, we've seen it. You chop down a tree, the whole tree collapses, and then when they want to cut it into little bits, they don't start with the big bits. They don't start with the whole trunk. They start by sawing off the branches, and then eventually you come to the. So maybe it's something to do with, if there's a big structure and it collapses, and you want to solve the problem of that structure, you start with what surrounds it rather than the main structure itself before you come to that main structure. When I read it, it made me smile, because it's one that makes you think.
Yes, I will connect this to the day-to-day running of an institution, be it a small or a bigger institution. I think staff should try to endeavor and work very hard to maintain a particular business or a working environment.
Sure.
At times, you might not care what will happen. Maybe you might not be doing your work.
Yes.
But at the end of the time, unfortunately, if things turn out the other way, before the main person, maybe the proprietor of the business, feels that pinch.
Yeah, go ahead.
Maybe the person working for that person might be the first person to feel it.
Well, it's true, and in another sense, they have this saying that any chain is only as strong as its weakest link, and that's why people, if you have staff, you should treat them well, because if you treat your staff badly, somebody who might be doing what you might think is a minor job, if they mess up or they screw up, that can end up damaging the whole of a big organization. So look after all of them as if all of them matter, because all of them do matter.
Everybody's life matter. That's important.
Yeah.
Before we come on this program, we were discussing something very important. I mean, the fading away of cinemas.
We
we used to have very good cinemas in the Gambia.
Sure.
The likes of Isomari Cinema, if people watching can connect, the likes of Sami Cinema in Basse.
They're not old enough.
Dunia Cinema. We used to have all these cinemas in the Gambia.
Sure.
What do you think cinemas were? What does cinema do to the society?
It used to be a kind of communal coming together, you know, and in other countries, and certainly in the West, cinemas had died out because of video, because of TV, but then certain movies started bringing people back because they thought, you know, this is a film I want to see on a big screen. You can get the same movie on your laptop or your computer, but when you see it on a big screen with all the proper sound, it really makes you feel, some of them, the music vibrates the whole cinema. You're not going to get that experience at home, even with your 72-inch screen. And so people started going back. But also there was a kind of thing where you went there, you met friends, you know. I was thinking the other day that the only time I've ever eaten popcorn has been in cinemas. It's not something I would normally buy and eat at home. You know, but you go to a cinema, it's part of the thing. You buy your, you know, soft drink, and you buy your popcorn, and you sit and when the movie's over, you start discussing with the people who are sitting there. Say, oh, what did you think of that? And all that is gone, and it's rather sad because you're not going to replicate that experience by watching a movie at home, you know, albeit.
Well, and sometimes it connects you to your family members. If you're a person who is very busy at work, I mean, you don't have the time, maybe a weekend, taking your family out to Q City Cinema or something.
It's one of the few we have, Q City Cinema.
Yes, this will connect the family together. Maybe you taking the mom out with the kids. I mean, it's just lovely to see families coming together in cinemas.
As you rightly say, it becomes a family experience. I mean, I grew up in Sierra Leone when from the age of about maybe 10, 11, 12, I would go to the cinema 3 times a week. I mean, I was obsessive about movies. So I would go every Saturday, Sunday, and at least one day during the week. You know, at night, my parents would say, if you finished your homework, you can go in the evening. And then Saturday in the mornings, I would go to a film, or in the afternoon, and then later on I'd go and watch football match. Sunday afternoon they had matinees, I would go and watch. I was completely obsessive about movies, and I became, you know, I made myself an expert on cinema to the extent when I went to the UK and I went to school there, we had a catalogue where people could choose films for the whole school to watch. I was the sole keeper of that catalogue, and I chose movies for the whole school for the whole year because of that. And like you said, you know, growing up, all my friends, we would meet outside the cinema. Before we went in, we'd look at the poster, we'd discuss it, what do you think is going to be like? All of that is gone, it's lost.
Well, at some point, cinemas were replaced by what we call video clubs.
Video clubs.
Yes, I think those were also glory days where you walk around the video club and you see a poster sticked at the gate or somewhere where it will attract you to come and watch a particular movie. I was a very big fan of video clubs. I can remember during my school days, you know, after school, or sometimes, you know, you escape from school and you go watch movies at the video club.
Well, that's right.
You know, so I think these are glory days. These are very good days. I mean, Mr.
And you know, for me, the video clubs, I see them kind of replicated now by people congregating to watch, you know, English Premier League matches, European Champions League games, AFCON sometimes, although sometimes we get AFCON matches on our own TV. But generally, the other day I was driving and the Champions League was on, and the people were already going to the video club, getting ready to watch. About 100 people in one place were going to watch. And so you get that sense. And when I went to Sierra Leone not long ago, what used to be one of the biggest cinemas, or certainly one of the best back in my school days, Roxy, now only shows Premier League football on the big screen. So people go there and they watch the football matches on a big screen. And the cinema, it was packed. I was really shocked. I was like, wow. They don't show movies anymore. They just show English Premier League games, and it's quite amazing. So people are still having that cinema experience.
They are taking over.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. Interesting engagement there. I mean, this is what elders are known for. I mean, sharing your experience. It's very important with us. Viewers, you're watching QTV this morning if you're just tuning in. And we dealt with the African proverb and, of course, you know, something that have to do with life. I mean, things that we've been through, things that Mr. Ade experienced starting from Sierra Leone to the UK. That is Video Club Cinemas. We'll take a short break. After the break, then we'll go straight to the newspaper review. We'll be back.
It's happy time. Get 50% off all calls to any network. Enjoy calls every day to any network from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. Is it too good to be true? QCell. We innovate, others follow.
Welcome back. We are back again, and of course you're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde and I'm here with Mr. Ade Drame. So we'll go straight to the newspaper review as usual. This is the Foreign newspaper, Mr. Ade, and it reads, PDOIs provide analysis on recent council elections. Victim Center impressed by government's white paper on TRRC. And of course, discussions on missing migrants on migratory routes end in Tunisia. National Human Rights Commission needs $396 million to implement strategic plans. And of course, NCCE commences citizens' engagement on peace security. And the editorial inter-party committee to have a new beginning.
Yes, I mean, I have the Point newspaper, and generally when I get the newspapers, my first inclination usually is not just to read them, but to almost start editing them.
Absolutely.
But I won't embarrass anybody by... so the first headline I have, it says, Mayoress Lowe arrives home with rousing welcome. I think they mean to a rousing welcome. Jammeh to be tried at The Hague is another one, and then in the bottom, government accepts reformation of Supreme Islamic Council. Again, this is one of the spillovers from the TRRC report and the white paper. It mentions there them accepting. And then Barrow supports ECOWAS stance against unconstitutional change of government in Africa. We can comment on that later, and I'll give you my views on that. Ivory Coast Honorary Consulate reopens in the Gambia, and we cannot forget sport, if I can quickly.
In sports, I've seen a whole lot of Liverpool thing, Man City.
Forget about that, let's go local. Hawks FC extend lead, Real suffer 5th loss in GFF First Division League. Scorpions to arrive in Senegal today, ahead of the South Sudan AFCON clash, which, as everybody knows, they're playing them on the 4th of June, so it's not that far away. And there's an interesting one in the bottom here. It says Renchi Momodu Aliyu Ba, coach of the Gambia national karate team, has achieved the affiliation of 5th Dan degree black belt. That's quite high. So that's something to kind of give a good thumbs up.
5th Dan degree black belt.
Yes, yes. Those who are into karate.
What kind of a black belt is that?
Those, well, you know, your basic black belt is already quite a high achievement. So to get 5th degree, that is like some serious, you know, international level. At
some point, that's the belt where they'll be like, don't mess around with this guy.
Well, I think from black belt onwards, you shouldn't mess around with those guys. So yeah, so shall we delve?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, let me start, if I may. I mean, Barrow supports ECOWAS stance against unconstitutional change of government in Africa. You know, I see these things, and you know. For me, I have to be blunt about this. It's a waste of time. I mean, they can have all the stances they want. The 3 most recent coups d'etats we've seen in Africa have been in West Africa, in the ECOWAS region. So they can make all the statements they want. It's not going to stop coups d'etats. What will stop it is rotten government giving the military an excuse to intervene. You know, and if you don't give the military an excuse to intervene, then they won't, you know. So, yes, we want civilian government, we don't want coup d'etats, we don't want unconstitutional change, but, you know, as I said, you're talking ECOWAS, and yet the 3 most recent have been in ECOWAS.
How do you give military the excuse to intervene?
Well, you know, when people start talking about corruption, and people see visible signs of corruption, some guy who, before he became a minister, was riding a bicycle, 2 years after he becomes a minister, he's got 4 cars and 5 houses. people think, hang on, he's not doing that on his pay. And so, you know, people get upset because their pay is not going up to the same degree as that. They're not making as much money, you know, as quickly as this individual. And things like that start getting pointed. And then you look at Guinea-Conakry. One of the first things they've done is they've ripped up all the contracts that were done for the mining industry because they were not beneficial to the country. So people see things like that. The companies that mine in our countries across Africa, not just West Africa, I know we're talking about ECOWAS specifically, but the contracts are rotten. I mean, one of the worst actually is next door in Senegal, the deal that they did for the oil there. I mean, the guy who did the deal, Frank Timis was making 9 billion.
Is that the guy from GP or?
No, he's a British guy. He's got Australian citizenship. He's Romanian, you know, citizen as well. And he was making 9 billion, where the government of the Senegal will be making 2 billion. There's no way that's a good deal, you know. And they were trying to spin it, saying, well, he's the one who brought BP, you know, to the table. So what? So you have all these dreadful deals that are made by African governments, and people see it and they think, hang on, it's our resource, we're not benefiting. Look at the Arab countries, you know, in the Middle East. Most of them have done really, really well with their oil wealth. How many African countries can you say have done well with their oil wealth in terms of infrastructure, schools, hospital, roads, and so on? Virtually none. So things like that give people an excuse.
Mr. Ade, if let's generalize this. If you look at Africa in general, sometimes I tend to think we are cursed. I mean, when you look at the way things work in Africa, there is nothing that is proper. No proper setups, no proper structures, nothing.
Well, you and I know that there are certain countries in Africa where they have all of that, but there are too few of them. You know, you could name them, you could name 5 of them. But for most of Africa, and so I'm always a bit worried when we say Africa, and then we just kind of paint everybody with the same brush. You're right. In a lot of countries, you have somewhere like Angola. You had Isabel dos Santos, eldest daughter of the president. She was previously referred to as the richest woman in Africa. Okay, let's look at how she became the richest woman in Africa. When her father was president, he named her the head of almost all the parastatals. She was also the head of 5 ministries, of course, and she had the nerve, when people criticize her, to say, I got it on merit. That is rubbish. I'm sorry. You know, you didn't get it on merit. You got it because you're the president's daughter. You know, and now most of her assets have been seized across the world, including in Angola. You know.
Well, Mr. Ade, is there anything done to find out whether she got it on merit or not? I mean, she might get it on merit. You never know.
Look, you don't name you don't name somebody head of 5 ministries, the central bank, the oil company. What, there aren't enough Angolans to be appointed to these places? Only your daughter has to be in charge of all of this? It's just indefensible. And of course, you know, one of her brothers was arrested. Of course, she dare not go back to Angola, and yet she's been giving these rubbish interviews. Vice president.
Well, I mean,
you know, he's not a minister.
For the case of Uganda, I mean, we've all seen how the past election transpired in the country. You can see it's like most of the people of the country were in for one Bobby Wine. I mean, Bobby Wine was arrested, and a lot of things have been done on him and his
arrested
family.
Multiple times, you might want to say. And they did all sorts of things to curb his presidency. And this is another problem in Africa, the kind of unfairness. So, for example, you go to Zimbabwe about 10 years ago. You had the head of the army coming out and saying, we will not allow the opposition to win an election here. If they do, we will stage it. But the head of the army actually could come out and say that in front of the whole world media. If the opposition win, we will stage a coup and overthrow them. He should have been locked up. You know, but it's the kind of dysfunctional stuff that happens in Africa. Yeah.
Okay, all right, let's move on. Let's take a look at PDOI's analysis on recent council elections.
Yes, I'm assuming they mean the by-elections, because very low turnout. So I'm not sure what kind of analysis they've done.
The People's Democratic Organization for Independence and Socialism on Tuesday, 24th May, provided the analysis of the recent by-election for the area council. A press conference was convened by the party at its secretariat in Churchillstown. Below is the full verbatim statement.
I hope you're not going to read that statement, which goes to a whole page. But as I said, this was very kind of, there were, what, 5 by-elections held because people had stepped down to contest National Assembly seats. So I'm not sure what analysis there can be beyond the fact, I guess every party has to do that. It's part of the process. Because the turnout was low. You had a few people win in seats where they hadn't won before, including a couple of NPP who won, but I'm not sure what, how deep, one can analyze that, because I don't think it signifies anything. If this had been national local council elections, I think that's something more that people can scrutinize and look at. When you look at the 5 constituencies, they were spread out, none of them were alike, so I'm not sure what you're going to gain by analyzing those results. But of course, every party must do that.
Let's take a look at the Victim Center, impressed by government's white paper on TRRC. I mean, they are impressed.
They're impressed. They're probably going to get accused of being supporters of the president, which is what happened on Twitter. I ended up arguing with lots and lots of people because I said that when we knew the white paper was coming, lots of the people who we follow each other on Twitter, a lot of the Gambians were commenting. When the white paper came out, 2 days after it came out, there was silence. And I think part of that silence was that some of them thought government was going to reject a lot. They were kind of disappointed because they didn't have anything to attack. And so they started saying to me, oh, it's because you work for QTV and you people support NPP. And I said, it's got nothing to do with that. It's not, this is a Gambian thing. It's not about party politics. It's not about me supporting this, that, or the other. All I'm saying is that there was a lot of noise from myself and from other people before the white paper came out. What's it going to contain? What's it going to, what? It comes out in silence, and you are people who talk on Twitter, they post 100 times a day. Suddenly their hands were frozen, and I said, comment on it. That's all I'm asking. What do you think of it? I'm not saying praise the government or anything, or damn them or whatever. Just comment, And funnily enough, once I posted that, then people started commenting. Of course, half of them were attacking me, saying, oh. But I'm not surprised because, as I said, the Victim Center would be pleased because government has, in effect, accepting.
Well, if you look at the testimonies on TRRC, I mean, most of the witnesses that came in front of the lead council, I mean, when you look at it, I mean, you can project, I mean, the government's white paper will come this way.
It's a difficult one to say because, when you talk about reconciliation, I think people have to think that government had a difficult choice, because do you balance reconciliation with justice? You could have said, in the interest of reconciliation, those who have come in front of the commission and have been remorseful and have said, I regret my actions, should not be prosecuted. You could look at, everybody's mentioned Sana Sabali, somebody who was both a perpetrator and a victim. It's a difficult balance. The government said he should still be prosecuted. So they had that balance to strike because some of the victims sort of centered approach that everybody said the thing should take is what has been taken. But some of the people who are representing victims have said, we didn't think he was sincere in his apology, and because of that we think he should be prosecuted. So I don't think it was obvious that government would accept all, and I think that's why there was the debate before the white paper that, oh, government, people were even saying, oh, I've seen and I've heard that because of deals they've made, they're going to reject a lot. And again, I say this, a lot of them were disappointed that government did exactly the opposite. They accepted almost all.
We have seen another paper carrying Jammeh to be tried at The Hague.
I always get suspicious when I read this phrase, an impeccable source has revealed. Every time I read that, I'm like, yeah, you're just rumor, really. But as press people, we don't say, I have a good rumor. You said an impeccable source. That following the release of the white paper, the government is ready to try for him to be indicted and prosecuted at The Hague. It's going to be difficult because, first of all, it'd have to be tried in absentia. He won't be there. And also, you're not going to get him extradited from Equatorial Guinea to The Hague to stand trial. So I'm not sure where this story is coming from or where it's going, but I think it's unlikely.
Well, I mean, I know most people would be in a haste to see, I mean, certain things have been carried, out. The white paper is out and all the things that are to be done are listed on the white paper. I mean, but now most people that I know are waiting for action, especially the victim center.
Well, this is it. As a country, and again, I keep saying, as Africa, we shouldn't say just use Africa, but what Africa is good at is passing laws, validating laws. What we're not good at is implementing laws or implementing anything in most cases. So yes, it's good and well that they've said in the white paper, we accept. Implementation is where they will be judged on. A year from now, what will we be looking back on and saying, okay, the government said a year ago they were going to do this in terms of the white paper and the TRRC. Have they done it? And if they haven't done it, why? Is it because of constraints, financial and otherwise, and so on? So people will be focusing on there and making sure that you've said you're going to do these things. Are you going to implement them? And if you don't, we will complain, and we will rightly complain. So yeah, it's good that they've said yes, but it is up to you and I, and not just the media. I think just the public generally will be looking to see, are they going to deliver on the promise, and give them time, 6 months or a year. We'll be able to get signs of how serious they are about implementing, and if they're not, people will give them hell for it, and rightly so.
All right, now let's take a look at the national, NCCEC commences citizens' engagement on peace, security. That's the civic education. This is one institution that sometimes I question. Why are they here?
It's very existence. Yes, I'm one of those. I'm with you on this. Since I came here, one of my beefs, and I get fuming about it, and I get furious about it daily. The way, this morning as I was coming yet again, I saw people throwing litter from their cars, and I'm thinking, nobody's going to sweep it up. Why are you doing this? That's the kind of thing they should be teaching, because some of the ones who were doing it were school children. They were on minibuses and taxis. They were going to school, and they've eaten their whatever bread and butter and akara or whatever, and they just throw the thing, and they don't even think twice. And because I see it every day, nobody's going to sweep it up. So why are you doing it? What are they doing? Civic education. They should be going to schools, teaching children from the youngest age, do not filth up our country, do not litter our country. That's what they should be doing. Not, look, I don't even know why they exist.
Well, I am surprised even a proper website. I mean, you cannot see a proper website. I mean, I stand to be corrected. I think there was a time we invited them here, whether they have any updates on their websites. I mean, but the answers they give are not impressive.
They should be on radio, they should be on TV, they should be out in the streets, they should be in the schools, in the colleges, teaching people to be decent citizens. That's the only way this country is going to progress. We talk about malaria, looking for vaccine, and I've said this many times. The countries that have eliminated malaria, they've done it by cleaning up their country, not by getting a vaccine. All 8 African countries that have eliminated it, that's how they've done it. That's what we need to be doing, and that's what they need to be teaching. Not signing and validating this, that, and the other. They need to be active, and if they don't have the funds, scream, shout, and ask for the funds so to make you be able to deliver on your work. Otherwise, I don't know what they exist for, really.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Ade. We'll take a short break.
Pleasure.
We'll still maintain you here. You'll still be here with us, as we'll be going to social issues. Call for the news story. Okay, all right. We'll be calling for a news story on government commission economy. And we'll be having Malik Jallow, who will be discussing, an economist, will be discussing on certain things that are affecting prices. We'll take a short break. After the break, the program continues.
With so many things to do in a single day, it's important to have a network you can trust. When there's family and friends to connect with and business calls to make, you need a network that is reliable and fast. Talk longer, browse faster, go farther, and roam wider. When your network is solid, the world is your oyster. QCell, your trusted network in the Gambia.
The biggest mobile money service in the Gambia has taken mobile banking to the next level. Now, you can link your Q Money wallet with your bank account. Yes, link your Ajib or EcoBank accounts with your Q Money wallet and get instant access to your cash anytime. No need to queue at the bank anymore. Transfer funds from your bank account to your wallet or your wallet to your bank account using Q Money Bank Link is the fastest, most secure, and convenient way to transfer funds between your wallet and bank account. For more information, call our customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Looking for the fastest and easiest way to receive money transfers from abroad? Well, Q Money and RIA just made it happen. Now you can receive international money transfer from RIA directly into your Q Money account with no additional cost. Once you receive an SMS alert about your transfer, walk into any Q Money agent across the country to receive your payment for free or use the money immediately to buy credit, Q Power, and other Q Money services. It's fast, safe, and convenient. For more info, call customer care on 133. Q Money, Sunyu Kalpe. Terms and conditions apply.
Your favorite QCell service has gotten bigger. eFunkanta. Now you can loan bigger credit amounts to make life easier for you. Loan $75 and $100 and pay later. Yes, you heard me right. Get credit loan from $10 to $100 using eFunkanta by dialing *393#. Anytime you run out of credit, whether you want to buy Q Power, browse the internet, make urgent calls, or send SMS. eFunkanta is the service for you. Dial *393# and choose the loan amount of your choice with no hassle. For more information, call our customer care on 111. QCell, Sunyabus, the pioneers of mobile loan service in the Gambia. We innovate, others follow. Terms and conditions apply.
You're watching QTV this morning. I am Ibrahim Abalde. We are back again after that break. And if you miss anything that we discussed here, you can go to our website. You can follow on that platform. And we go straight to what we call the social issues. And as I mentioned earlier, we'll be talking to Malik Jallow, an economist. And Malik is here with us already in the studio. Malik, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
It's good to have you. Is this the second time or the third time?
Yeah, I think it's the third time.
This is the third time.
Yeah.
It's good to have you here. We are happy to call you so that you can come discuss with us on certain things that are currently affecting everybody. That's price control, price escalation, and a whole lot. So we are hoping at the end of these discussions, people will learn a lot.
Thank you for the opportunity. I think this is it's interesting to have these conversations all the time,
Sure.
so that people could understand what is driving what and what should we expect in terms of economic circumstances. Like you said, it's a global phenomenon right now, inflation. If you turn on the TVs when it's time for economic news, the first word you hear is inflation.
Sure.
Yeah, and why is it so important? Because it hurts the living standards of people.
Sure.
Yes, I think, Mr. Ade, we have a video.
Yes.
We have a video, and we'll take a look at that video. We'll be back.
The task force, which is expected to present a report in 2 weeks, consists of members from the Ministry of Finance, Accountant General Department, Gambia Revenue Authority, Gambia Public Procurement Authority, Central Bank of the Gambia, Ministry of Trade, Gambia Investment and Export Promotion Agency, and Ministry of Agriculture. The team is assigned to develop a diagnostic analysis of the current situation of the economy and make recommendations to improve the living condition of the people. The government has also introduced cost-cutting measures to minimize the impact of current global economic uncertainties. The Secretary General and Head of Civil Service has informed all ministries, departments and agencies of immediate measures to mitigate the impact of what it calls the current global economic challenges caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the Ukraine war. These have resulted in a reduction in economic activity, revenue generation, and the surge in the price of fuel and other commodities. The government has taken measures by reducing spending on overseas travel, fuel and lubricants, and telecommunication allowances. In doing so, government has suspended overseas travel except for statutory meetings of the UN, ECOWAS, AU, World Bank, IMF, AFDB, ISDB, or where the organizers will fully pay the cost of participation in such overseas events. The measures also include paying half per diem for the missions where the government will provide accommodation. Although per diems have some benefits, some employees often view them as a way to supplement their salaries, which can lead to people attending unnecessary meetings and workshops to collect per diems. In telecommunications, government provision of post-paid mobile telephones for public officials will be limited to senior officials and relevant security functionaries with limits. The government has reduced all monthly fuel allocation to eligible officials by 20%, stressing that ministries, departments and agencies must keep expenditure on fuel and lubricants to a minimum. The move reflects the economic risk and government see in the current energy spike, which has been driven by a rebound in fuel demand since the darkest days of the coronavirus pandemic and the supply disruptions in the wake of Russia's invasion of Ukraine. These measures, according to government, will be placed and will be reviewed, pending improvements in the economy.
Interesting piece there by our own Momodu Gajaga. And Malik, let's go straight to the discussion. I mean, we've seen the government doing all these things to make sure they do some controls. I mean, what do you think is the problem from your own end? What do you think is the problem?
Well, as an open, small economy, I should applaud the government for all these steps they are taking. It's an initiative to, to help calm the economy, the heat, the inflation heat we are experiencing. But these are temporary measures, and while they may cool off the situation, it may not solve the problem. See, since independence, the macroeconomic fundamentals have not been in well position. That is why we are left so vulnerable to these exogenous shocks, because we are trading with the world, we are so open. Domestic production is not given priority. Foreign direct investment is not coming in. Employment is not given priority or is not on the positive side. If you look at the last employment statistics from GBOS, it was 35%. Out of every 100 Gambians, 35 are unemployed, which means the high pressure dependency ratio on those that are working, and we have a very youthful population. You look at education and health. So these are key macro fundamentals, and they have long been neglected. That is why when this crisis hit all over from Ukraine, given our level of import dependency, at first when COVID started, we were not feeling the heat that much, because by then our importers would have already had some stock in place that were purchased at prices prior to the COVID. And you could see inflation started heating up in developed countries before it started hitting developing countries rather. But over time, as this stock run out, now they have to renew, they have to make new orders, and then prices have changed all over, from shipping costs, shipping time, delivery time, and from production costs. In fact, some suppliers were telling you, okay, you have to pay, before the pandemic, you pay 30%, and then the remaining 70% at delivery. But now they increase, because of the risk involved and the uncertainty, they increase to, you have to pay 60% or 50%, then the remaining percentage at delivery. So because of this reason, because of the neglect, we neglect our macroeconomy, the measures that government is taking, they're impressive, but they will not have that much impact. For instance, the central bank recently banned the withdrawals of FX or FX
I saw that.
deposit for funding your accounts offshore, which they should have done a long time ago. This is really impressive. But another thing that they left out is, how many bureaus do we have operating in this country? How many MTOs do we have operating in this country? Now, FX is very key, because interest rates,
You better
inflation,
clarify for those who don't know foreign exchange.
foreign exchange, right? Foreign exchange.
Yeah.
Interest rates, inflation, and foreign exchange. These are three variables that you cannot control at the same time.
Sure.
It's impossible. Given the condition that you have, the situation, then you have to prioritize which is more important. Because if you reduce interest rates, your currency becomes less attractive.
Sure.
That is, you are pumping more money into the economy, and your inflation is likely to pick up. If you increase interest rate, your currency become attractive, investors run for your currency, exports become expensive, but then it will increase the value of the currency, because the currency becomes high in demand, so that they can invest and all that.
Okay, Malik,
Yes.
you said with the government coming up with all these things, at the end of time, you don't think it would be effective?
Yes. I don't think it will be effective.
In the long run.
Because
short-term measures.
yes, in the short-term measure.
Yeah,
Because
yeah.
and the thing is, what is causing this? You have to find the root cause of this situation. The root cause of this situation, in this case, for instance, in terms of inflation, economists would expect interest rate to start picking up, because the Federal Reserve has increased its rate. The ECB is thinking about getting off the negative corridor and going into positive, and all other central banks around the world are trying to increase interest rates. But if you increase interest rate or central bank monetary policy is good at taming down demand, reducing the demand side of the curve. But on the supply side, it is ineffective. And what we have right now is a supply issue. Ukraine grains are at the ports of Mariupol,
right.
ships cannot leave.
Yeah.
Oil, Russia used to produce 4 million barrels per day in the global market. Now banning Russia out of the market, the United States is trying to replace that, but they can only produce 1 million per day. And the OPEC countries do not have spare capacity to fill the gap. So you can see this is upward pressure, and oil is a very crucial input in all kind of production, transportation, food, shipping and everything. So this is why, while it is impressive, it may not have effect. And we have been depending on imports. Our current account balance has been negative since 1970, which means we are importing more than we are exporting, which in turn means we are demanding foreign exchange extensively. So this is putting a downward pressure on the dollar and leading to scarcity of FX in the market, because our sources of FX supply is weak. What are the sources of FX supply in this country? We have remittances.
I was going to come to that. In fact, I had it as my
Right.
number
I
one.
will give you the opportunity to ask question if you want before I go into
Well, that's right, because you mentioned certain things, including the high unemployment rate, and I was going to say that is part of the complacency in the Gambia around the fact that, despite its size, in terms of remittances, Gambia is in the top 10 in Africa. If you look at last year alone, remittances from Gambians living abroad hit probably $1 billion. And because of that coming in, I mean, officially it was $787 million. And unofficially, as we've said many times, every time I travel, somebody gives me money, takes to my uncle, my aunt, my mother, father, so on. So we've assumed that coming into the Gambia, we're talking about $1 billion in remittances.
And some of them are not even accounted for.
Well, that's what I'm saying. So officially it's 7, and then if you take the unofficial one, it probably rounds it up. And is that why we've become complacent about dealing with some of the things that we should be dealing with? Because when you look at it, what are these remittances going to? Paying people's transport fee, their rent and so on. They're not being put into businesses, they're not being put into productive industries and so on. $1 billion is a lot, and yet we're not seeing the effect of it. So have we become complacent because people think, oh, somebody will always send me money? Rather than start a business with the money that I'm getting from my brother, sister, or whatever, I'm going to build a house. Why not buy a taxi and run that as a business also? So we've not been doing that. And so, the unemployment has been kind of cushioned by the fact that remittances keep coming in to a lot of people would not survive on their pay. What helps them survive is the remittances that they get from family members living abroad. I repeat, have we become complacent because that remittance is always coming?
I will not call it complacent. From the micro perspective, different agents are looking out for their interests. The individuals look to satisfy what we call their utility. I need to eat, I need to clothe, I need to walk around. So, if I have somebody supporting me and there is low job opportunity, even if I graduate, there's very high chance that it's going to take me a long time before I get a job or secure a job. And there's no other alternative for me to get into an investment. The environment is not allowing. I need capital. They don't have, we don't have capital, venture capitalists who will encourage business. In that case, I will not call it being complacent. What I will call it is that we, at the macro level, because the government is responsible for steering the direction of the economy. Like what they are trying to do right now, they are trying to redirect the economic trajectory. So if we look at the source of remittance, before we go to this point of high prices of exchange rates, like the dollar is depreciating this fast. Recently I saw Mr. Njai, I think he traveled abroad. He was trying to withdraw with his Visa card on a machine abroad, and they were converting the dollar to dollar. $1 is $61. Here we still have 54, 55. So before we go to this point, data or the statistics that government have been publishing, I do watch it every time. It's from them, would have already indicated that our sources of FX is weak. Like, I will go back to mentioning them. We have remittance, and also the problem with remittance is those is vulnerable, is exposed to the economic circumstances in those countries.
Of course.
If my brother, my uncle is not working anymore, or his pay is being cut, obviously it's going to affect me. Right? And then 2, you have foreign aid coming in. Foreign aid, a lot of money were pumped in during the COVID, but as soon as the COVID was dying out, and then they started cutting down those funds, so which means it's also limiting our source. Then we also have budgetary support, which is also the same thing, and you have foreign direct investment, which is actually not coming at all.
Exactly.
So this is the point. Instead of having businesses establish important, companies in this country, we should start directing them in investing, bringing in capital. Okay, these goods that you're trying to import in this country, is there any way we can produce, if not all, part of it here? Because once you start producing, you sell, you get foreign exchange. People buy and they pay to your banks FX, and there is FX coming in. Then if that's not happening, you have importing bills. This 2021, our import bill was $37 billion. Our imports on goods and services, and our export was just $6 billion. $6 billion, and this we have $5 billion that is made up of service and $1 billion that is goods. So, which means all those imports bills, that import bill of $34 billion, over 677 million FX equivalent. You have to demand it from the local economy. But where is the supply?
This is it. I walked into a shop along Kairaba Avenue, a supermarket, and I said to the guy, I said, if I was in America, I should not be able to come to your shelf and find 8 types of imported peanut butter when you consider groundnut is our main crop.
Yes,
I should not find a single imported. If I went to America, as I've been a few times, you'd see only American peanut butter. You're not going to, and yet for us, it's the main crop is the groundnut. And yet I go into a shop, I can't even find Gambian peanut butter on the shelves, apart from in a few supermarkets. And I'm thinking, why is that? It's not like this is a new thing for
Well,
us.
I
It's
think
always been there.
the dependency, I mean, outside, we're depending too much outside, and it's also killing us. It's killing our economy here. But Malik, you mentioned we have a lot of forex bureaus here. How do they also contribute in this problem?
Well, you know, my people are there. You know, we have them, and we have the MTOs, and so they compete in selling and buying, because they buy and sell to the banks sometimes. So if you have a lot of, let's say for instance, MTOs sending, those are money transfer operators that send, you are abroad, you give them your money, they send it to your family here. Now the more they are players in the market, the more they compete, which means everybody is going to try to pay a higher rate a bit so that they can get customers. So they send those monies to the bank, and then the bank buys it and then gives out dollars. But sometimes what they do, instead of going to the bank, they negotiate with a third party. Okay, because actually what the bank is paying them is lower than the party. So they're making an extra margin. So they contact that party and they use the bank to settle that party. So that's why when this central bank press came in, it was good. Just that the implementation was putting a lot of chaos in the market, because these kind of things, there are people who wants to settle their tuition fees abroad for their kids. Some want to travel, they need at least $1,000 in their pocket. There should have been guidelines alongside with certain exception. Okay, even though the policy is good, but the implementation a bit. But that is one way they compete. In the bureaus, it's the same. They all buy and sell. So if there is high demand for FX, because there is high import bills that banks have to settle for their customers, banks will thus compete to buy the FX, and this gradually drives up the price. Now, central bank is very good at monitoring the banks. It's very good and effective at monitoring the banks. I think they should centralize these towards the banks, reduce the amount of bureaus, increase the capital requirement, the license, the T-bill that they need to make place, and this is gonna limit the incoming number of bureaus.
But you're going to ask the inevitable question: how do you limit the number of bureaus? Because
well,
these are all being set up.
You can raise the capital requirement.
Right.
You can bring. There are regulators. Regulators can always find a way, because right now, if you bring cash deposit to the bank, you cannot withdraw it. You either deposit it and sell it to the bank, or you want dollars or FX, the bank sells you. You understand? But because over the period, interest rates have been dropping, especially in the investment area, T-bills. So money is one of the functions, is a store of value.
Treasury bills, by the way.
Yes.
T-bills.
T-bills. So if money, one of the function of money is a store of value, and the users are expecting that inflation is going to eat up that store, obviously they will start to shift their wealth in other forms of money.
Of course.
So that is why you saw people buying, because interest rates are dropping on investments. Inflation is picking up. So if I keep this cash in the bank lying down there, the purchasing power of this cash is going down. So why not I buy dollar and keep it in dollar, because to maintain my store of value. This is why you will see people renting out their shops, and they will ask you to pay them in dollars. Which is also exacerbating the.
It should be made illegal.
Yes.
I've always felt, to be honest.
The FX problem in the country. So while this policy is good, the fundamentals must not be left out. It's just like when you try to build a story building and your foundation is not strong. You may try to make it look nice, but eventually a strong wind will just come and everything blows down. So this is why we are having problems. If you look at other countries, they have the same problem we do, even though we are a bit worse given our level of dependency, but they're able to tame it off a little bit, because they already have these fundamentals. For instance, right now the US dollar is going to remain more powerful, because US is increasing its interest rates, which is making dollar investments in the US attractive. Right now, it's not only in Gambia, major African countries are facing dollar shortage, because the dollar is moving back to the US. And US debt is becoming more attractive, because the Biden administration is pumping in billions. So which means they're going to issue more debt. Investors, in portfolio investors, will be moving because of the yield they're going to get and the interest. These are all factors that are playing in. So if we had corrected our macroeconomic fundamentals, if we had, because development is about being really committed, strong commitment, and you have to be strategic. Although you cannot move the entire economy at once, but there are certain fundamentals that if you kick them, they can cause a contagion effect across the board.
Interesting. Well, it's good to know we have all these things in place. I mean, and certain things are affecting the way things work, especially the economy. So the solution, especially what we have in this country right now, when there is price increment, everybody blames the government. You know, we tend to think the government increased prices, while the prices are increased from somewhere, not the government.
I will tell you, if government is really serious right now, they are not sleeping. If this was an election cycle, a presidential election cycle, they will not be sleeping. Government, I'll be frank, they are not responsible for price increment. This is beyond their control. But what we should understand is that we need them to go back to the drawing board. And to the drawing board, we mean we need to put the drivers of this economy moving. We need agriculture to come, heavy investments. We need manufacturing. We need to redirect our international trade position. We need to expand our ports, and we need to encourage the importation of capital goods over consumable goods that can be produced within the country. Capital goods are goods that you use to produce other goods, technology, machines. If you look at our import structure, we are not importing those. They just make a small percentage. We're just importing food, mineral stuff, and all that stuff. So we need to redirect that. And how do we redirect that? Government has its fiscal tools. There is taxes. There is waivers that they can give. There are subsidies. There are a lot of things that they can manipulate in their toolbox to redirect this. You bring in an old car vehicle, they charge you less. You bring a new model, you are hammered. So what are you telling me? Okay, all the cars that have been running until they don't want them running in Europe now.
They're scrapped. I mean,
dump them here.
Yeah, that's what happens.
And then they come here again, more pollution, more problem. You see them parked in the streets everywhere at the mechanic shop because they were already dead.
Yeah, right.
But you are taxing them low, or you are charging low, which is an incentive because people respond, consumers respond to incentive. If you go to if central bank maintain this position of banning this FX, people will eventually start selling their FX to the banks, and then probably the rates may begin to cool off. But they have to stand firm, because right now some people, I'm telling you, are sitting in the corner expecting, no, this is not gonna last. Let's just wait. Let's just wait. So they have to wait. They have to make those people waiting disappointed, which means they have to step their foot on the ground that this is a real policy that's gonna stay. So we need to change that export structure. That export structure, importation structure, is a source of reserve. We need reserve because in terms of this, central bank could pump in money, pump in FX, and take out the dalasi through auctions, and then makes FX available in the market by capping the price, and then price goes down. But if central bank doesn't have the reserves, if the country doesn't have the reserves, how can the central bank intervene effectively? It cannot intervene effectively. It makes it really difficult. That's why we need to go back to the drawing board. The macro fundamentals. I always say the macro fundamentals because they are so important that they are the pillars for sustainable development. I saw you want to come in with something.
No. I was just agreeing with you.
Yes.
I was just nodding in
Do.
agreement.
They do keep you, when the times are tough, you go to rescue, look at your macro fundamentals. But if your inflation, I'm expecting inflation to be at 15% by the end of next quarter. Right now it's 11.6, 11.7. But I think it's going to go to 15% because I don't think this is cooling off any sooner.
What will happen when it gets to 15%?
I did an estimation. If you had an income of 50,000, you are losing at 11.7. You are losing almost $11,000 to $14,000 in purchasing power. So which means your income has drastically gone down. So which means fixed income earners, we suffer the most because inflation is going 11%, but our income remains the same. So our purchasing power, what $1,000 it can get you, you can bear me witness. If you walk out with $1,000 between here to the end of this fence here, it's gonna go. You wouldn't know where it is. Just buy 1 or 2 items.
Well, it's happening.
Of course.
I've realized it when I have the $1,000, especially the 200 notes in my pocket. Before I get home, maybe I'll be left with 200.
And you know,
Yeah.
one sign of a non-good performing currency is when you start having larger denominations. When you start seeing a currency having larger and larger denomination, it's an indication that the value of the currency is going down. Look at all the currencies in Africa that has larger denomination.
Zimbabwe.
Actually, they abandoned their currency and they're using US dollar.
Yeah, dollars. Yeah.
You look at Somalia. You can get a wheelbarrow of
money,
cash,
right.
to go around to the market, and you walk past people. Nobody's gonna look at it. Nobody's gonna look at you.
And nobody's gonna rob you.
Because money is money because of confidence. You will accept it because you think if you present it somewhere, somebody else is going to take it.
Sure.
But if that confidence starts to dwindle, then money will not be real money. That's the driver behind it, or that's the key fundamental that is keeping the money. So this is what we're really facing. Our drawing board, we must go back there. We must prioritize investment. FDI, especially foreign direct investment, not this portfolio investment where you just invest in government securities and tech. No, real investment, production, factories, all these environmental policies that the Western countries are coming up. It doesn't favor us. All the things that they are asking us not to do through these trade agreements are the things that they did exactly 50, 100 years ago to get to where they are now.
And interestingly, just as a lot of African countries are now finding fossil fuels, including oil, the Gambia might be one of those, a lot of those Western countries are now moving away from that to electric vehicles. And so they're saying to us, don't, and yet they have benefited from oil. You take the likes of the United Kingdom, the North Sea oil. It brought in billions, tens of billions into their economy. And we're now trying to get to that stage, Senegal, the Gambia, and they're saying, no, don't do that. Fossil fuels are bad. Let's us enjoy the bad for a while.
And they will promise you.
But this is it. They'll promise you all sorts of things to kind of mitigate against you going into that. When no, let's benefit from it and improve our country, and then we can start, sort of thinking about kind of green energy.
It's industrialization process. We are, if you look at where we are compared to developed countries, we are 100 years behind, if not more. You look at China. Okay, the early years I went there to study, the waters were so polluted.
Right.
They agree and everything, and China was accepting trash from other countries and getting paid. But what happened when their economic capacity grew, and their fiscal position improved, and the economy was growing 10% in 3 decades, right? With a minimal population growth rate, then living standards improve.
Sure.
Now they can acquire the technologies that they need to clear their waters. They are shifting all those environmental polluting production activities to Thailand, to Philippines, and also they're engaged in environmental preservation. Now you can talk about it. But at this stage where we do not even have anything right in the first place, we are still struggling with energy supply and water supply. And then you want me to shun all those development providing opportunities for clean energy, and you promise me funds that I will never see. What happened to when the 2017 Barrow administration came in? They went to the EU. They were promised billions in support.
1.3 billion.
Where is it?
Well, that money.
Yes.
And,
well, I mean, they put all kinds of conditions on before. But it was interesting you mentioning about waivers for investment and so on. But one of the things is what you've just touched on. If I'm going to come to the Gambia to set up a factory, I'm going to be asking, what's about the water supply? What about the electricity supply? And if you can't guarantee even that, that's not a luxury. That should be a basic. And then I'm not coming to your country.
It's going to drive a lot of investors away.
Dangote to Senegal because of energy. Energy capacity cannot accommodate the
That's
factories processing activities.
And Malik, there is something happening in the Gambia. I don't know whether you've realized it or not. I mean, I spoke to a lot of businessmen, especially those within the Banjul area. These people said to me, now my goods are not coming through the Gambia. I send them to Senegal, then from Senegal I bring them to the Gambia. If that continues to happen in this country, what will happen to us?
Some time ago, I jokingly said to someone, just jokingly, I said, don't be surprised in 10 years to come if Senegal start requesting for visas, people coming from neighboring countries. Don't be surprised, because they are really accelerating their growth. Gambia used to be a re-export hub. When I started school earlier, around 2000, you know, I grew up at Farafenni. And the border, the ferry crossing point, okay, was really driving Farafenni's economy. Even though I was young, my dad has a retail shop. We do not close. I mean, we operate 24/7. Is when I'm on the shop until I get exhausted, I go to sleep, I wake my dad up, and things keep running. But as soon as they started introducing this alliance, they started introducing the idea of the bridge. Because it is easier to cross from Dakar to Kaolack to Farafenni than to other side of Casamance than to use Tambacounda. So these lorries crossing, they spend 1 week, 3 days in Farafenni, and this creates a lot of economic activities. Some people from the Combos used to come to Farafenni to work in those days. So if now things have turned around, it means we are sinking, because Banjul is strategic in terms of geographical location. Even with minimal investment, Banjul can still defeat Dakar in terms of attractiveness. We just need the investment to be there. If I was given an opportunity to ask, what would you do if you were given Banjul today? I would turn Banjul into a processing zone, because Banjul is an island, right? It's close proximity to Europe. And also Guinea-Bissau, Mali, they all used to get their products from here. Senegalese douane used to come to Farafenni to buy sugar and take into Senegal. I was still young and I observed that. So if Banjul, if let's say a huge investment, let's say $10 billion, just assume a rough estimate, it's been invested in Banjul to turn it into a processing zone, not even producing, but goods that come in raw form, we process them into another form and send it to other countries, reduce the rate and expand the port facility, reduce the turnaround time, and ensure efficient collection of revenue and all those things. We will beat Senegal. We will beat Senegal. And how many millions of jobs that's going to be created?
Yes, but I mean, how are we going to do that here? That's the biggest question.
I pick up on that point because there have been talks recently, serious talks about expanding the port facility and actually changing the dynamics because I think they know that the model as it exists now is broken, it's old, and we're going to lose out to our neighbors if we don't do something. So there have been recent, quite serious talks about expanding the port and expanding its capacity and what it does. But I think, as you rightly said, it has to go beyond just expanding the port itself. You have to create a kind of economic zone in Banjul where if I bring my goods in raw form to the port, it's a 5-minute drive to an economic zone where it can be processed and then exported or re-exported somewhere else. Unless that happens, then they'll go somewhere else. Why would they come here?
I will tell you 3 strategic areas that, if given great attention, can flip the direction of the entire economy. Because I observed this from China. When China started opening up, although it's a bigger economy, you cannot compare, right, in terms of capacity. When they started opening up, they look at areas that are close to waters, areas that are close to borders, where the land borders. They started opening up. Deng Xiaoping in 1978 calls it, there's equality and equity. So expand the size of the economic pie before deciding who gets what size of the economic pie. So he says, let's open up those areas. And they started, that's why you see Shanghai, Guangzhou, you see Nanjing, some other parts of China, Ningbo. Those are some of the biggest ports in the world. That's why they started opening up. if we open Banjul, transform Banjul, Basse, Farafenni, Brikama, tell me, you can just imagine the impact that would have in this country. It's 1.2, it's 2 million population, rough. If you drastically change or invest heavily in Brikama, you invest heavily in Farafenni. Farafenni, North Bank region, is the highest groundnut producing region in the country. You look at what Basse is good at producing and the location of Basse, invest heavily in Basse, then invest heavily in Banjul, given its size. Tell me within 1 year, because economic policies, economic events have contagion effects.
Of course, yes.
This rural-urban migration can be solved by that way.
Sure.
It's one way. Because if I can graduate from Basse and get a job at Basse, I don't have to come into the campus and worry about rent or where to stay. If I can graduate at Farafenni and get a job at Farafenni, I will not come here. So, but we don't have this. It's like we are just doing on operational basis just to pass the day.
Yeah, of course.
Look at the budget. Look at the budget. The chunk of the budget is going to operational expenditure, recurrent expenditure. There is no room for investment. Government has already spent 4 billion from taxes collected. If it is 12 billion that we are collecting in taxes, so if government spends 4 billion on recurrent expenditure, servicing debts and all over, then the revenue that GRA is collecting by the end of the year would be just to maintain the government afloat. And then you have new ministries came in. How is it going to be funded?
I mean, if we look at the geography of the country, apart from the Atlantic coast, we're completely surrounded by Senegal. Why have we not utilized that border? And I look at somewhere like Uganda. 5 years ago, 15 years ago, I beg your pardon, everybody used to talk about Uganda. It didn't have a coastal zone, and they refer to it as landlocked. And then the government decided to flip it on its head and said, we're not landlocked, we're land-linked, because we have borders with 9 countries. Why don't we utilize the fact that we have borders with 9 countries? And so they started building factories on the borders with various countries, and they're saying to those countries, bring your goods here, we can process it. Now, Uganda is way ahead of almost all of those countries that they share borders with by thinking of themselves not as landlocked, but land-linked. They're linked with 9 countries, and that's not a disadvantage. It's an advantage. They say, okay, the goods that we produce that we can't take to the seaports, you take them for us. Other goods that you need processed, we will process for you. And that has completely changed Uganda's economy.
Ethiopia doesn't have a port. It relies on Djibouti. But Ethiopia is one of the fastest growing, just being interrupted by this recent war. It's one of the fastest growing economy in East Africa. So that's why development is strategic.
Yeah, sure.
That is why you have to identify your capacities. Even as an individual, you cannot do it all. You cannot have every skill, but you surely can identify what skill set you're really more productive and efficient at.
Sure.
And then you explore that. So the same thing to the Gambia. When I was teaching at Bansan, when it's during the time of mango period, you walk around the highway and you are kicking mangoes.
Yeah.
And you are kicking mangoes, and you come here, mangoes are expensive.
Yeah, quite.
I mean, imagine having a mango factory and ensuring there is a year-round production of mangoes, substituting all these, carbonated drinks we have that are not even healthy in the first place. How much employment you can create in those villages?
I actually know somebody from from Trinidad, and I'll give him a plug now. His name is Kent James. He's from Trinidad, but he's actually moving to the Gambia to open exactly such a factory. He's not a Gambian. Well, he's been here a few times. He loves the country, and he's seen exactly what you've just described. Mangoes going to waste and not being processed.
If you go to the Fonies, you see the amount of mangoes that are rotten.
Yeah.
You will really.
Yeah.
And that's what he saw, and he thought, why don't I come and open a factory here? And he's coming to do exactly that.
And these are things that, they can do in this country.
Of course.
I don't think it will cost them a lot. Even when it costs them a lot, you think about the benefits that it's going to bring to the country.
Sure. Capital investment doesn't, provide returns as soon as possible. But capital investment are going to help mitigate the kind of circumstances we are facing right now.
Indeed.
This is why capital investment is done. You anticipate, you formulate expectation, and you have growth trajectory. Okay, from 2020 to 2021, our nominal GDP grew from 93 billion to 104 billion. But the real GDP in terms of prices grew from 62 billion to 64 billion. So from 93 to 104, that is a 12% growth. But from 62 to 64, that is a 4% growth. Now, which means out of the 12% growth that we have on nominal GDP, 8% was as a result of price increases, because nominal GDP accounts the value of goods, the market value of goods and services, given the current prices at which they are being priced at. But the real GDP looks at the quantity, because we are keeping prices constant at a base period. So, which means we, in terms of real goods, we are not doing that much. If you have a real GDP growth of 4% and your population is growing roughly at 3% per annum, it's like, okay, there's another person who got a job this year in the family, but there's a newborn baby also in the family. So that person's income is being eroded by the newborn baby in the family. So that is what it means. You are growing real, but then your population is growing. So which means your population, your income has to grow way faster. So that there is excess surplus, there will be savings for the kid, there would be, good schooling prepared for the kid and all that. So if you have your GDP and economic growth tandem, it's like you're not moving.
Now, we interrupted you because you were talking about China. You were going to mention 3 things. I think we didn't allow you to get to the 3. The first was you mentioned about China building closer to water and closer to borders, and then I jumped in. So you didn't tell us what the other 2 things.
Then they also did FDI. They
foreign
allowed,
direct.
they allowed foreign direct investment through joint ventures. Even if some of my colleagues who were there longer before me, and they had good Chinese, and they wanted to do small businesses, they have to partner with the Chinese.
Right.
That's a joint venture. In that case, you are encouraging skill transfer. Right? So the countries abroad that are more developed than us obviously have more labor skills and technical skills, and we need that. So allowing them to come in should not be a scary thing, but make sure it is controlled for the future. If you start a joint venture where the foreigner can owe, the Gambian can owe 56%, okay, or 51%, and the foreign investor can owe the remaining amount. In the future, if the Gambian is in good position, they can buy out the company. That's what happens in China. These McDonald's and all these guys came there. Even the supermarket brands, they all came there and they invested, but they were in joint ventures. That's why you see the Western countries accusing China of, intellectual property theft. But I mean, it happens. They did that. When America was broke away from the UK, they also used technology that came from the UK. It's imitation. When you are learning a job, you imitate what your boss is doing, what they are training you. Then while you have experience on the job, you understand, you see weaknesses, then you make inventions.
I mean, growing up in the 1960s, for example, I'm old enough to remember when Japan, having recovered from the devastation of the Second World War, started going into technology. And people used to laugh and say, oh, look, they're imitating what we're building, radios and televisions. By the 1970s, that market was completely dominated by Japan, to the extent where Japan had something like 80% of the world production of TVs, videos, cassettes, of course, later the Walkmans and so on.
Now
they completely dominated
They are known to be providing the best products.
The same to China.
If
you come to Africa, people tell you, just walk in the city, they will tell you, Chinese, copyright. But that is the first stage of knowledge absorption.
Of course.
Tell me, when you go to school, you repeat exactly what you are told. When you go to the dara, you repeat exactly what you're told. Then as time goes on, I think this should be pronounced this way. Don't you think this way? Okay, I think, then you start having inventions, you become innovative. But if we don't have that, then we cannot do anything. So let these companies come in these different areas. They allow them to come in, and when they did, they ensure that there is share control, and there are also profit reparation. There is also control on that, how much of your profits, because that also affect the amount of circulation in terms of foreign exchange, because if you make profits here and you buy dollar and you send it, you are also impacting the FX market. So you look at that. Then gradually they started opening them. Now they are talking about opening up the financial sector. But even with that, they're very careful, because there is certain way you open, Okay, it's going to be very difficult to get back the resources being controlled by your citizens. That is why, even if America wants to sanction China, it's not going to be that effective, because they have already had domestic firms like Alibaba, like the ones that provides the GPS, everything already internal. So if they shut them out from the external, like they tried to shut out Huawei from the Android system,
Android,
they started their own system. This is why. But if you are open, when Gambia joined the WTO, it was in 1968, there around. It was too quick. China negotiated for more than 25 years before they joined the WTO.
And so did Qatar for about 15 years.
Because once you enter, the kind of arrangements or agreements you sign is going to be very difficult for you to have that much control of your economy. Instead, foreigners are having control of your economy. And that is why most African countries are struggling, to be in charge of their economy. Because we have signed these, WTO agreements, we have signed these IMF agreements and these World Bank agreements so early that we do not look at the arrangements, how it's going to impact us 25, 50 years down the road. And now we will find it difficult to pull out, because it's English, it's law.
Thank you very much. We've kept him here longer than expected.
Well, can I ask you one final question before you dash off? And it's something that has intrigued me. There's been a lot of talk about the Gambia having a stock exchange. Is our market big enough to? I mean, Sierra Leone has 4 times the population of the Gambia, and they've not been able to get a stock exchange off the ground. Are there enough companies in the Gambia for people to be able to buy and trade stocks and shares?
Well, from the start, it's not. But I don't think it's a bad idea, given the government's trajectory, especially in terms of the security market.
You're right.
Because government is now reducing the amount it's borrowing on T-bills and borrowing long-term in bonds. And the major financiers or investors are commercial banks. So that is putting the entire financial market into risk, because if you are taking short-term deposits and investing in long-term bonds that you cannot exit your position in terms of liquidity issue, then that's going to put the entire financial system into problem. But my own let me say economic advice would be, before that comes into place, we should put the macro fundamentals in place. We should have companies coming on board, we should have investments come in, we should have all these things, because that is where you see it gives opportunity for people like us retailers to invest and sell stocks and create an alternative source of income. But without those things being in position, is still going to be futile.
Exactly,
All right, thank you very much. Interesting interaction out here. If you call an economist, come, let's discuss economy.
Give him the whole program.
Well, I think we've kept him here longer than expected.
We have indeed.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Well, viewers, this is where we're going to draw the curtain. This is all we have for you on this edition of This Morning. Until we come your way again tomorrow, have a wonderful day.